everyone, Jolene here from Bookworm Adventure Girl. Welcome back, and if you are new, thanks for checking out my channel. Please hit subscribe and stick around. Today I am going to be talking about Margaret Atwood's most recent publication, which is Burning Questions. And this is a collection of essays and writing from 2004 to 2021. I read this in April, and I didn't talk about it in my monthly wrap-up because ever since I did the Mondays with Margaret, that series, where I read almost all of Atwood's works, I just feel like her books just automatically get their own video. And this year I am sort of doing a series called Margaret Made Me Read It, so it kind of falls into that category as well. So let's get to this chunker of a book. First of all, this cover. I mean, really? This is Margaret Atwood, and all we can think of for the cover are these flame things, and the colors hurt my eyes. It's just, I don't know. To me, it shows no creativity at all, so this cover does nothing for me. We'll move on. Okay, so now I entered into this book with a lot of anticipation. You know, for over a year, I was used to reading a Margaret Atwood book basically every week, and then for more than 3 months, nothing until this came out. So for me, this was like taking a little step back in time to visit an old friend and just, you know, having that comfort of knowing exactly what I would get. So if you know nothing about Margaret Atwood, which that's probably not true for anyone, but what I would say is that you need to know is that she is one of Canada's most well-known authors. She's been very prolific in her writing, and even though she is most well-known for The Handmaid's Tale, she has written so much more than that. She has written, well, let's see, it probably has a list here. She has written like, oh yeah, here we go. So, okay, I will show you. Here's the list. So she's written poetry and children's books, short stories, dystopian novels, graphic novels, which are the two that I haven't read. I haven't read her Angel Catbird or The Handmaid's Tale, which is also a graphic novel. So, but I have read everything else that is listed here. So obviously she's written fiction and nonfiction, which is what this is here. So this book, in many ways, is the third in a series. So Atwood wrote Second Words, which includes writings from 1960 to 1982, so the first 20 plus years of Atwood's writing life. And then Moving Targets, which has writings from 1982 to 2004, so like the next 20 plus-ish years. And then this one, which continues 2004 to 2021. So what they all have in common are Atwood's writings about her own work, about the work of others, like either reviews or introductions to their publications, and then those kind of things. It includes pieces on writing and some autobiographical tidbits, and they have Atwood's wit sprinkled throughout them. So Atwood talks about the earlier works in her introduction and describes how the world has changed in 60 years. And I love these lines here. I'll read this to you. In 1960, I was 20, single, unpublished in book form, and a female undergraduate of limited wardrobe. In 2021, I was 81, a fairly well-known writer, a grandmother, and a widow, also of limited wardrobe, having learned through failed experiments that there are some things better left unworn by me. So that shows you some of her wit. And so this particular book is divided into 5 sections, and it goes in chronological order. So the first part ranges from 2004 to 2009, and the book begins with a piece of science fiction, followed closely by an introduction that she wrote for a new publication of Frozen in Time. This is by Owen Beatty and John, I think it's Geiger. So this is significant because this story really had an impact on Margaret Atwood. She even wrote a short story about the Franklin expedition. Yeah, which is kind of cool. So other themes that are brought up in this first part is writing, colonialism, environmental issues. You won't be surprised by any of this if you've watched any of my series. And it's fun to see what authors that Atwood reviews. The reason that's important is because Atwood will not review a book that she doesn't like. So a review from her is a huge stamp of approval. So this is a reminder to me that I need to read, you know, some of the books or some of the authors that she put in here. Richard Powers is one of them. She reviews his 9th novel, The Echo Maker. And she also reminds me to read more Alice Munro and to take another look at Dickens. So one of my favorite pieces in this first part is the piece that she wrote for the 100-year anniversary of Anne of Green Gables. It's so well done. Many of you, I know, already know that I love Anne of Green Gables. And I shared some of my editions of Anne of Green Gables because I have quite a few. And I included a Japanese edition, and I talked about how, you know, how much Anne of Green Gables is just loved in Japan. And Atwood talks about that a bit in her piece as well. So to finish off that section, Atwood has an essay on writing and writing in life, which is just pure Atwood. The second section covers 2010 to 2013, and this section begins with a piece on writing, quickly followed by a piece on Atwood's involvement with PEN Canada, P-E-N Canada, and another short piece on her friend Alice Munro. So in the next two pieces, Atwood introduces me to a new to me book and affirms a book that I have recently read. So the new to me book is called The Gift, and this is by Lewis Hyde, which Atwood says has never been out of print. And I really want to check this out because I like how Atwood describes it. So it says this on, I think it's page, let me find it here. So it says this: gifts pass from hand to hand. They endure through such transmission as every time a gift is given, it is enlivened and regenerated through the new spiritual life it engenders, both in the giver and in the receiver. And so it is with Lewis Hyde's classic study of gift giving and its relationship to art. The gift has never been out of print. It moves like an underground current among artists of all kinds through word of mouth and bestowal. It is the one book I recommend without fail to aspiring writers and painters and musicians, for it is not a how-to book. There are many of these, but a book about the core nature of what it is that artists do, and also about the relation of these activities to our overwhelmingly commercial society. If you want to write, paint, sing, compose, act, or make films, read The Gift. It will help to keep you sane. So I loved that description. And then at the end of this essay it says, "One guarantee, you won't come out of the gift unaltered. This is a mark of its own status as a gift, for gifts transform the soul in ways that simple commodities cannot." So I love that, and that's going on my TBR. So let me know if you have read it and you know what you thought about The Gift if you have read it. So the next book that Atwood writes about is Bring Up the Bodies by Hilary Mentel, which, as many of you know, I have read that with the Up to No Good book club that I am part of. And Atwood has reviewed other works by Mentel, so this is just like a huge note to me and a reminder that I really do want to read more of Mentel's work. And I think I have a couple on my shelf. So Atwood also writes about Rachel Carson on the 50th anniversary of Silent Spring, which I still need to read that as well. And she even reviews Stephen King in this section. So she reviews Dr. Sleep. And I will be reading The Shining, is it May? Yes, this month with AJ Dunn's Killer Reads group. So I will have to get to Dr. Sleep, after that and see what I think of it. And then Atwood ends this section with an essay called How to Change the World. Now, the book is called Burning Questions, and I think that a lot of it comes from the fact that Atwood is so curious. Like, she's just naturally curious about the world and about people. And so, for instance, How to Change the World raised 3 more questions for her, which I wouldn't even think about. But this is what she writes about in the piece. It's, you know, what do we mean by change? What do we mean by how? And what is meant by the world? So this is classic, clever Margaret Atwood. Section 3 is pieces from 2014 to 2016. There are more themes in this section. Atwood does an entire piece on beauty. I really liked the short piece called, The Summer of the I can't say it's properly, but stromatolites, I think. It's one that like will again show you how her brain works and where she got some of her ideas for Stone Mattress. And she writes about her 3 encounters with Kafka, which was fun, at least I thought it was fun. And she does a piece on the future library, which I have talked about in the past as well. I forget which video that was in, but Atwood is the first author to contribute to this project, which is kind of like a time capsule that will be opened in 100 years. And her thoughts on it are very interesting. Atwood looks back at The Handmaid's Tale, at Hagseed, and Alias Grace, which I think I really liked because I have read, you know, all of her work. So I find it interesting when she kind of reflects back and sheds some more light on all of those. Atwood introduced me, or reminded me, I guess, of 3 authors that I still need to read in this section. And they are Gabrielle Roy, or Raw, I can't say it the French way, but who's been on my radar for like a very long time. Marie Claire Blais, who wasn't familiar to me, and Thompson Highway, who's been on my TBR for quite some time as well. So that leads us into section 4, which goes from 2017 to 2019, and Atwood starts with Trump and what was happening in the world at the time. The themes of these pieces include feminism, writing, human rights, and her work with Amnesty International, and also abortion. She reflects back on her book Oryx and Crake, and authors mentioned in this section are Ray Bradbury, who I read for the first time last year, and hope to read some more, and Ursula Le Guin, who I've actually never read. So this brings us to the final section, which is from 2020 to mid-2021, and Atwood starts in an obvious place, the pandemic, and she has a few author pieces here too. There are themes of environment and science, but I think what was most special about that part for me is her writing about her husband, Graham, who died in the fall of 2019. So this book and many of her books are dedicated to him. She includes the title poem of her last poetry collection, Dearly, as well. So, as I said, like for me, reading this was just a continuation of a relationship, and it was a joy to read. And since each of these have been like every 20-ish years, I'm not sure that we will see another book quite like this, unless, you know, Atwood will be 83 in November. So unless she lives over 100 years to be over 100 years old, which I wouldn't put past her, you know, so, but I know she's still writing, she's still quite active, so I look forward to, you know, seeing and reading whatever she decides to give us. So what about you? Have you read any of Margaret Atwood's nonfiction, or her short stories, or her novels, or poetry that she refers to here? Have you read Burning Questions? I would love to hear all about it. If you haven't read any Margaret Atwood yet and you're wondering where to start, I will leave the playlist of the Mondays with Margaret series in the description box below. And I also did a top 11 Margaret Atwood novels, so I will leave those links to all of that below as well. So I look forward to chatting with you in the comments. Thanks again for watching. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and don't forget to make every day an adventure.